Hello, 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 and welcome to this month's Deal Clinic Live. I can barely contain my excitement. So now, this month's Deal Clinic Live is a special episode because we are actually looking at a project that is extremely close to the team's heart. Okay. And that is because it is headed by our very own CEO, Chris Dowty. Now, the focus of today's project is around modern wellness lifestyle. So, really living in a more holistic way. Project itself is called HIVIBE. That says a lot. So I am particularly enthused for today's episode due to my background in spirituality, frequency, energy healing, all that good stuff. When Chris mentioned this to me, probably about a year ago now, I was excited to see what he and his co-founders would be creating. So today we're going to be looking at, it's the first time that this is actually going live. So we are looking at the vision, the concept, and the project, and also why this project came about. Chris, it's great pleasure to hand over to you.
Thank you, Bonnie, and yeah, welcome everybody. I think today is going to be a bit more of a discussion between all of us, which is going to be really exciting. So, yeah, thank you so much. It's today really wanted to sort of bring something a little bit special to sourcing investments. We work very hard, doing everything that we can to spread the platform, having line of sight to access across the UK. But really today is about something a little bit different. And again, it is close to my heart. That's no shadow of a doubt. But this is about really looking at something, looking at wider. The UK is fantastic, without a doubt. Really solid returns, consistency. But at the same time, there is a wider globe out there. And today is not just about, promotion of HIVIBE in itself. It's actually looking at the methodologies that everybody should be looking at, whether they're in Bali, whether they're in Indonesia, whether they're in France, Europe, or even in the UK. So there's an element of sort of, utilizing what we preach as investors, but also there is a side element to it, which is you'll get to see very shortly. So how do you want me to proceed then, Bonnie? Do you want me to sort of share my screen and really sort of, and again, anybody is welcome to put any questions or in the chat box. And Bonnie, you touch. This isn't a formal presentation, although there is elements of it. This is a discussion. And again, Tim, jump in anytime you want as well if you want to challenge me. So without further ado, let me share my screen. So I think really, today's discussion is about thinking big, and thinking big, not just in terms of all of our journeys on investing, and not just thinking about, the UK or our local areas within the UK. It's very easy to sit and be very comfortable, and with anything on your doorstep. And why am I here? Well, right now I'm in Bali, hence why it's dark, and what time is it? 8 o'clock here right now, 12 o'clock in the UK. For me, my experience in the UK has been, really exciting. It's been a lot of work going from buy-to-lets through to HMOs, through to residential, commercial to residential conversions, through to running a property fund, and then obviously now over the last 7 years focusing on sourcing investments and making a wider influence and progression of the entire investment market in the UK. But there's always been a part of me that really has been excited about what else is out there. The only way I'm going to describe what today in the market really for me is it would probably be the equivalent to the UK being in the Victorian era of growth. I'll leave that as a thought. But it's now time to think bigger. Many will think, oh, not for me. But at the end of the day, this is not simply just about promotion. This is about your processes and thinking a little bit outside of the comfort zone of your box. So it's time to think bigger. And from my perspective, every month I work very closely, sourcing investments, but work closely with Property Investor Network and providing a UK property market update relative to our data that we have and insight. And here on the left-hand side is the latest sort of March 2024. And you can see that, down in the southeast is very much a reflection of sort of the mood, very much a reflection of the housing market strength. And unfortunately, that strength has been lost due to interest rates, ever increasing, with the Bank of England base rate at 5.25 as it stands at the moment. And so what that means is, unfortunately, that the buying power of individuals is now at least 25% less. And with the UK being, very reliant upon leverage and lending, this has caused a drop in prices and very much a static buyer's market as well, waiting to see what's going to happen in the near future. Forecasts are probably the interest rates are going to be dropped in the second half of 2024, according to some of the insight from Bruce, who is obviously normally on here. But really, what it's really showing is, we're very, very sensitive as a market through in lending, which obviously affects what I would call capital growth, prices of the market, and also yield. So economy is now in recession. I believe that is official. Unemployment, on a positive note, is low and incomes are increasing. But again, from an investor perspective, this is long-term positive news. But unfortunately, if we're looking at a 1 to 2 year time frame, of which many of us are as investors, it's not really that great news. It's not really going to affect anything in the short term. We've got other costs. I have quite a few HMOs. Running costs of energy have increased over the last year, which has really narrowed and hammered a lot of my personal ROI. And I'm sure I'm not the only landlord. But again, very frustrating. It's stuff outside of our control. But on a positive note, over the longer term, unfortunately, it doesn't happen immediately unless you're fortunate to be coming to the end of a tenancy. But rents are continuing to rise, which is good news for existing investors, and actually over the longer term, good news for longer term, views of incoming investors now. But there is something interesting. And I'm making this, I've now been in Bali for now 6 months. I've now been here, I think in total, 10 months in the last year, something like that. And this is a really interesting from the World Bank. And in 2024, Indonesia is now going to be overtaking the UK as the 5th largest economy in the globe. Which again, really, I've heard this, but until I've done my own research, it's just actually quite taken me aback, because there's an element of me going, yeah, but we're the UK. We're the UK. Right, we've been around and we used to own most of the globe, but this is, now taking off the rose-tinted glasses and looking internally, looking at a wider environment on the globe. This is actually the reality. And just to give you some sort of comparisons, gross domestic product growth forecast of the UK is predicted at 0.6% in the same time frame over the next year. You've got Indonesia is looking at 5.1. That's more than nearly sort of 7 times greater in its natural growth. Hence my analogy. It feels, and you can feel it energetically here, just being around, seeing things happen. The growth is infectious, and every aspect, not just property in itself, but you can actually see it and feel it with your own eyes day to day. Other comparisons, again, sort of relative to the property market, which again, what we're all here for. Over the next sort of 4 years, the growth from Statista.com for the UK is around about 9%. In the same time frame, we are looking at Indonesia just in its current state. And I want to point this out, this is without any lending. There is not that much lending that happens here. It is tiny. And that is a 33% forecasted increase without lending. So again, a very interesting proposition if somebody figures that out. But really, again, wanting to point this out, that those yield sort of averages, on buy-to-lets can be up to, sort of 9, maybe 8%, something like that. In London, it's less than 4. So again, depending on where you are in the UK, but the average rest of the world is around about 5. The average investment yield in Bali is 15. And this is just a reflection of the demand. It is just crazy. And really, in the other facts at the top right-hand corner, looking at Europe, UK, China markets, again, been massively affected and underperforming. It's people are seeking haven for return on their money, especially with the existing real estate markets, but you have to look globally now. An interesting note again here in Bali as well for investors is corporation tax on profits. Not all profits, I think it's up to 350,000 US dollars. So again, if you're making more than that, well done you. But it's up to 0.5% on corporation tax, which is slightly less than the UK, just slightly. Wink, wink. So a lot of you are on here, where is Bali in Indonesia? Here's a nice little global map. We've obviously know exactly where the UK is. This is where I am right now. It's all the way over pretty much Australia, a little bit north. The climate is, just to give you an idea, pretty much steady between 26 degrees and 31 degrees constantly throughout the year. There aren't many seasons. There's dry season and wet season. We're currently in wet season, and if you get 2 hours of rain overnight, that's about it. I think I can cope with that. But it's a very stable climate, and again, very attractive. It is a holiday destination 365 days a year. So again, there isn't really that sort of cycle that most property, especially from an Airbnb perspective or anything like that, have. This is constant. And where it is located, again, in Asia, you've got so much Chinese inbound. You've got a lot of India now are opening flights in. It is a very, very busy place, but really good, really amazing. And obviously, it is kind of like the Spain of that is to the UK, is Australia, is Bali, is the equivalent. So that's where it is. And if some of you are not that faint-hearted, it's actually only 18 hours door to door. I think I can get down to Plymouth in 4.5, so it's only a little bit more than going to Plymouth from London. So it's not too bad. And this is where we really go on to next. But really, before I start this, from any of the guys or Tim or Bonnie, any thoughts on, from your perspectives, the why is the UK, but also, we've had discussions slightly before this of, we have to be open to our eyes. It's not just local markets, right, and different areas in the UK, because it's not just on your doorstep, but from a global perspective, there's more ways than one to skin a cat as ROI in property, right?
Yeah, completely agree. And as someone who's lived over in Asia, lived in Macau for 7 years, Asia is a cracking place to be. Indonesia as a whole is a lovely, lovely place. And the UK is brilliant. It's a first world country, which is brilliant, but we're being squeezed at the moment. So all my portfolio is doing well, but it is being squeezed. So being able to take that time and being able to look elsewhere is definitely something that's on my agenda at the moment, for sure. Fun.
All right. That's what I like to hear, Timmy.
Yeah, with regards to, it's a great presentation, Chris. So thank you so much. With regards to, you were mentioning about the growth. So I made some notes, 9% growth in UK, 33% in Indonesia, and 15% there in Bali. What would you say to an investor who, because we are being squeezed, just to Tim's point just there, with investors here who have specifically invested heavily in the UK, have maybe a medium to large portfolio. What would you say to any investors really looking to invest in Bali or countries like it with regards to diversifying their portfolio? Would you say as an example, if I came to you as a brand new investor who wasn't really sure of what to do, there's two questions here really, Chris. Brand new investor, not really sure what to do. Would you recommend me, say, purchase a portfolio in Bali, or split half of my money between Bali and the UK?
For me, diversification is good. And I think for me, for a long, long time, trying to, what I would call, fight against a naturally shrinking market. And I won't say naturally shrinking, but obviously there's growth there, but we're talking about so many people accessing it. So many people, what I would call, fighting over yield. So many people fighting, yes, and obviously it's stable, and but that's really the sell now on a global market. And this is not just about Indonesia. I work a lot in and discuss a lot with estate agents who are trying to bring, like, for example, Chinese investors into the UK, and they simply say, look, unfortunately, our only really USP for the UK is stability now. stability. It's not about growth. It's not about yield. It's not about capital growth in London anymore, because unfortunately, there is a ceiling limit relative to what I would call the mainstream market being able to afford, because it's so tied to interest rates. And so therefore, you know, for me, look, there's got to be other areas of the world that are growing. There has to be, you know, and as I say, we sometimes are very, very blinkered and very, very cautious around just, you know, even people, you know, thinking about investing in Spain or something like that, you know, that actually, you know, historically has been, you know, quite volatile. But at the same time, you know, if you do your due diligence and you really get to understand the local market, it's the same as understanding, for example, the difference between, you know, where I've been brought up near Nottingham versus Plymouth. You know, I don't understand Plymouth unless I work it out, do my research, do my analysis. And the only difference really, again, you know, from a market like here, you know, I've been on the ground now, as I say, sort of for 9 months, getting to understand the legalities, getting to understand the, you know, the legal differences. You can still apply a lot of the same principles as an investor. And in actual fact, that stood me in a lot of good stead. There's a lot of what I call very amateur investors here. And, you know, when I see them in networking groups and some of the questions they're asking, oh my God, I wish them all the best, but they are walking into a black hole of a nightmare. You know, when they start asking about, am I, I don't know, just some of the questions off the top of my head are just so silly, I don't even want to say them. But you just, look, there's a lot of similarities. At the end of the day, real estate is about providing rooms or pillows to sleep on. That's it. And it doesn't matter if you're in Indonesia, it doesn't matter if you're in China, it doesn't matter if you're in the UK, Plymouth, London, you know, Portsmouth, doesn't matter. You are trying to put what I would call a product where people can put their head on and pay you for. That's it. So analysis of the market, analysis of the tenant type, etc., is all absolutely crucial. And you'll see now how I'm going to link this into what the whole premise of this movement is that we're creating here. The same analysis, you know, prevails, whether in the UK or whether you're over here. The difference is there is what I would call the key thing is understanding the legalities, making sure that you're working with people. And it's the same in the UK. Good people, good builders, good, you know, project managers. You know, these are hard to find, even in the UK, right? Good lawyers, etc. So again, going down that methodology of finding and who you're going to work with is all absolutely crucial. And I've just applied all of my, you know, experience over the last 25 years in real estate and applied it out here, and it seems to be working well. The difference is the market is naturally growing so aggressively that without even doing anything, you're winning. And you know, since we secured the land for this entire venture, it's gone up 2.5x. That's 250%. And the actual stability of this market is second to none. So it's not, it's one of these things where, you know, when could you have done that in the UK? Well, yeah, probably in the Victorian era, let's be honest. So hence my, you know, I link it back to that. So where we are today really is, you know, again, all the principles are the same, but here and what we've thought about now, and I think from a personal journey, and then again, you know, Bonnie knows me very well outside of work, etc. You know, this is a very personal journey for myself in the sense of, you know, one of the things that I've noticed is very much a lifestyle that actually resonates with me as a person, being active, being connected to other humans, rather than, you know, living in London and not even, you know, knowing your next door neighbor, or never mind the next, you know, 50 people who live next door to you. You know, it's a very interesting place. We're so isolated, and all we focus on is work, with very little balance and thought for ourselves. So on a personal basis, you know, this is something that we believe that over, you know, not just here in Bali, which is obviously, you know, the branding of the place, etc., is about, you know, sort of rejuvenation, connection, nature, and very spiritual. But at the same time, this is where it's logical to launch. But where this is heading is going to be much more internationally focused, because we believe that this is something that the market wants. And it's the same application of, you know, like I said, you know, investing in Plymouth HMOs back in, you know, 2009, where there was a massive demand for it, right? Looking at the market and seeing that students, you know, were desperate for it. So this is the same principle. And you know, as I say, we can talk through what HIVIBE is, but as I say, not just what it is as a promotional thing, but actually sort of saying to everybody on this call, or anybody who's watching this after, is just look at the numbers from a market perspective. And if you truly are an investor, you have to be listening and, you know, and reading about not just your doorstep, but what else is out there, because this is about making your money work for you, not you working for your money.
Chris, I just want to come to that before you go into the next part, because that's actually very key. Like what you've mentioned there is, it doesn't really matter where you're investing. Even if you were focused on the UK, it's about making sure that your criteria levels, or levers rather, are hit, are on point, and to make sure that you do your due diligence with regards to the research and the numbers, because actually that's what leads us investors to, for want of a better expression, the gold, right? If we crunch the numbers, if we crunch the detail, if we do the due diligence, it doesn't matter where in the UK we invest, as long as it hits our criteria levers. So in that respect, it doesn't really matter what you're saying, as long as we utilize those resources that we've built across our years of investing, that we can apply we can apply the same skill set to investing anywhere in the globe.
That links very nicely actually onto a question that we've got from Amal. Could you touch a little bit on the infrastructure that's in Bali, and how that works in terms of what's there at the moment, comparison say, to the Philippines? Gary mentions he's invested in the Philippines. He's got 20% corporation tax over there, and the infrastructure isn't necessarily great.
Yeah, so, and again, I'll get into it. The infrastructure here is honestly, I would say, in a lot of ways, is actually better than the UK. And I say that, for example, 5G is prevalent everywhere. You know, this is for digital nomads, etc. Perfect environment. Look, it's a bit like anywhere. You know, here, everything is it's a bit like what I would call a bit like living in the countryside in the United Kingdom. So, for example, you know, where I grew up in the middle of Lincolnshire, you know, everybody's off grid in the sense of, yes, you've got your electric, and yes, you've got what I would call access to water. But here, you know, there's no drainage, as I say, so for waste, human waste, etc. So again, you have septic tanks, etc., which is the same as like my parents have in the, you know, in the countryside. So the infrastructure here, again, you know, on a comparison level, look, if you went to slightly north in Bali, which is near Denpasar, which is the main, you know, major, it's the capital city, the infrastructure there is fantastic. I'm going to say fantastic. Look, it's not a Singapore, of course, but that's not the reason why people come to Bali. But overall, it's a bit like anything. And what we've decided here is very much to be completely, we're forecasting, you know, with this development, which again is very personal to me, because this is about living in this place with a community, you know, for the next sort of, you know, 20 to 40 years of my life at least. So be an old man. So we're taking a long-term view. And one of the things around it is being in control. And it's the same in the UK, same discussions that we had when we built my parents', you know, house, probably about 3 years ago, is how do you, you know, future-proof it? So, for example, you know, water retention, in the sense of, you know, collecting it, using it for grey water, using it in your toilets. Air conditioning unit here will cost you around about £30 a month, and that's the only cost that you have really here on a property. So, you know, at the moment it's low, but actually what you have to, the other side of it, it's not just, you know, what I would say cost. So in the UK, for example, you know, people are putting solars on there because to offset cost of how much it is, you know, from the actual government infrastructure. So, you know, look, it's completely manageable, but in essence, you have to create your own infrastructure, you know, and I've done the same on my property in London, you know, and again, you know, actually had, when I was doing a development on it, to put solar on the roof. to try and offset, the cost of, and this was 7 years ago. So, at the end of the day, people think that everything else is going to be sorted out for them, whether we pay taxes to the government, whatever it may be. It's not. You have to take control of your own destiny and create your own infrastructure. And that's what we're massively doing here. But at the same time, you don't need to. But the infrastructure in general, in a lot of ways, is better than the UK. But again, if we're talking about public transport, I could have living in London, I could argue all day long. I think it's amazing. But then, a lot of the time, if there's some leaves on the track, it doesn't even run. So, let's have a discussion all day long about what is the definition of good infrastructure.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Should we get into it then? Should we have a look at what you've
yeah, for sure. Here? Yeah, for sure. And again, questions from anybody, etc. So yeah, so I'm pleased to, present HIVIBE. This is, from concept probably just over a year ago through to actually, executing and getting into every single granular level of detail, from the legalities through to the, substructure through to drilling to make sure that the land actually doesn't have any problems on it, etc. So yeah, this is HIVIBE, and again, the tagline is the holistic modern wellness lifestyle, which is something that's very close, and I think that everybody is now paying attention to. The problem is that the question is how, and this is hopefully something that will bridge that gap. So we've got a very clear vision. Myself and my co-founders, we've got 100 years of experience, real estate, hospitality, holistic health and coaching, and really our vision and our mission as well is to create a new way of living. And it's not like this is the first of its kind. There are, various, I would say, competitors out there, not just in Bali, but very few and far between. But there are some around the world, and we want to basically bring what I would call that element of connection, wisdom, and combining it with modern technology, and more importantly, where every detail matters. And this is through sustainability, which is everything that we're building, through to, the detail of how people will live. And, one of the taglines that I like to use is, this is going on a retreat, but it being there 365 days a year. So whether you're a resident or whether you're coming for a night, it doesn't matter. You still have that same connection experience. And, the key for us is, one of our taglines is, this is our vibe and our vision. This is HIVIBE. So again, why? Why do I invest in Plymouth? What is the mission? What is the challenge? What problem am I trying to solve? And now moving that here. And this is my own experience, my team's experience, and everybody else who, I know very closely back in the UK and in Europe and the Western world. And we've noticed that really there is a collective challenge of what I would call that low energy. What am I doing this for? And especially post-COVID, I think a lot of people are questioning, what are they doing? Why are they doing it? And what is this life about? And that comes from disconnection of who we are, that disconnection with others. And that doesn't mean, after a hard week of going to the pub and smashing it up on a Friday night and then, having 2 days of existential dread and then starting the whole process again on a Monday. But also, that connection with nature. And I think that's something that, especially, being in the central London, that's something that everybody craves. And London is one of the best cities in the world for having as many parks as it does. But again, we're so disconnected from that on a day-to-day basis. So, from that longing for connection and community, and this is something that is really what we've observed, and this is something that we want to facilitate a solution for. So our project is really a place with a lot of soul, and we want to bring that new holistic and vibrant lifestyle to everybody. So not a huge a huge jump. And again, from our perspective, it's more than just investing in a property. You're actually investing in a lifestyle. So whether you're a resident or whether you're an investor, you are facilitating a lifestyle that ultimately people in the West are aching for. So again, I've spoken about environmental infrastructure and sustainability, with that being hugely on the cards. And we forecast very soon that actually, not just from our perspective, but, people are going to probably be taxed depending on where they go on holiday in the future, with carbon credits coming into the UK, where are you going and how much is that going to affect that sort of carbon footprint? So we're trying to get ahead of that game. We're bringing in water conservation, solar energy, wind energy, organic waste management, and making sure that, and again, something that you see a lot in Indonesia and unfortunately Asia is, recycling is something in its infancy. So we want to be ahead of that game and bringing a plastic-free and 100% recycling environment, which we will do on site. Again, leading the way and hopefully inspiring very many others to do the same. And that is, somebody has to be the start of that. So again, that sustainability in the infrastructure that we're building has got a 40-year window that I'm looking at, because that's where I want to be in 40 years, still doing this. Now, that sets the tone and the vision. And now I really want to get into the technicalities of not just, what it's like here in Bali. And Bali's a, huge island, approximately about, I can't remember. I know the comparison is New Zealand is about the same size as the UK, but I don't know how to analyze Bali. I've got a feeling it's about the size of Wales. I've got a feeling, but maybe I'll be wrong. Some stato can tell me that. But this is sort of giving guys and you investors out there that real sort of understanding that a lot of time and energy has gone into this with regard to the data analysis, market analysis of where, what, how, why. And here is just some real comparisons of 4 major areas that are known to a lot of people who come to Bali. Canggu, Uluwatu, Ubud, and Balangan is where we have forecast is where the next movement is going to be coming with price increases because of its location. And you'll understand a little bit more in a minute. But ultimately, what we've done here is summarize just to say, look, there's markets just as the same as, say, for example, investing in Manchester. Overheated. Everybody came in there. It used to be a high-yielding environment, and now it's not. Central Manchester, now people are moving out to the vicinities, and that is exactly the same kind of analogy that I would use for Canggu. Massively overheated, massively overpriced, and people are really struggling to actually rent out their villas because of that demand. And also, it hasn't become a very nice area with that massive aggressive growth. But just on a total level, the occupancy rate on average is over 78% here in Bali. And that's across all, types of rental accommodation. And that just sets a tone. And again, it's the same with anything that you have in the UK. You've got to be better than your competition because one is where you are location-wise. And we talk about that a lot at Sourcing Investments is location, location, location. Close to infrastructure, close to what your tenant type wants, and it's really simple. Location is key. So again, where we are, number 4 on this map, again, this is by design, and very fortunate to come across it at a time when I did last year. So market comparables, do it whether you're in Bali, do it whether you're in the UK or anywhere else in the world. Very key. And this is now getting into it a little bit more. This is the southern part of Bali. You can see number 1 up here. This is the international airport, which actually, a little bit of a insight, yesterday was closed, and it's the only airport in the world that closes for 1 day. And that was by design. It was the Balinese New Year, which is called Nepi. And the entirety of the island is people not allowed outside. It's a time for reflection. It's a time for connection. It's a time for, being with family, and you're actually not allowed out of your own building for a day. So it's kind of enforced. So in actual fact, no airlines, no nothing came in, and it's the only airport in the world that does that globally. So again, quite interesting and quite, again, authentic back to what we are. It's about humans and connection. I was in Bali and I had an emergency appendicitis and had an emergency my appendix taken out. So again, I can say on personal recommendation that the healthcare system here, is very good. I wouldn't say it's, what I would call for brain tumors or anything. You'd probably fly to Singapore for that. But again, on a day-to-day basis, it's really, really good. And it's not the horror stories that it used to be probably 25 years ago. Again, other things that people love, infrastructure like golf courses, that's millions of pounds put in. That's right next to where we are. Again, don't try and create anything brand new. Go where the infrastructure and the money is being invested. Again, here people love to eat, restaurants, same as anywhere, you know, the UK. Sport is a thing, so gymnasiums, you know, playing paddle tennis, etc. So again, all of these things are within sort of like, you know, 10 to 15 minutes. And again, this is the design around the tenant type or the people coming. And you can apply this whether you're in, you know, Scotland doing buy-to-lets, or whether you're over here in Bali, you know, looking at whether it be tourists or residents or investors internationally. Any questions so far, team? Am I kind of covering it?
No, it looks great. It looks great.
So this is the actual infrastructure, and this is the site. So it's on 1 hectare of land, which for everybody in the UK who don't deal in the metric system is actually 2.5 acres. There's 2 entrances. So from a road perspective, there's a big road at the front. When I say big, 2 lanes, brand new. Quite lucky, it was the election. I think about 4 weeks ago, and to persuade some of the voters, they put in a brand new road, resurfaced it, so it's kind of a bit like, you know, it's even better than what I would call the M1. So that's fantastic. But when I say that, I'm talking about, you know, in a countryside area. We've got 2 accesses, and we'll get into what it is. But again, there's a lot of thought and design. Everything designed here not only is about maximizing it from a property development perspective, but actually everything has been designed from a feng shui, sacred geometry perspective. So everything is designed with energy in mind, energy flow, and how people are using every single space. So you can, this is not just about being woo-woo. You can combine what I would call that Western, you know, methodology of optimization and capitalism, and blend that with you know, what I would call the Eastern modalities as well. You can do both. And it's not simply just about, you know, what I would call bang for your buck. You can do both and actually create something really special. This is kind of an insight. Again, you know, this is what it's going to be. We've got, you know, 2 lagoons within the whole entire complex. These are going to be saltwater, again, great for health, rejuvenation, and minerals, which is great. And right in the center here, you can see a pyramid. And Bonnie, I know that kind of gets you excited. Many people here are investors, will be like, what's that mean? But trust me when I say there is a lot of good news, and what I would call a lot of energetic good news around having a structure such as that in the center of your anywhere that you are. Go and check out Nicholas Tesla for understanding those kinds of things, if anybody wants to be a scientific geek. So again, sort of giving you some visuals. We've got a restaurant, a couple of restaurants on site. This is again about sort of that ease and that dynamic of design, which is actually sort of nature driven with a flow of a wave. That was the idea of this. So again, natural build, and not being too, what I would call, you know, too far away from what we call Balinese design. What we've got here again is sort of like that infrastructure that allows what I would call a business to exist. On the left-hand side is your suites, and then you've got your pool, restaurant, and on the right-hand side, you'll be able to see the wellness area, which is with hot and cold therapies, cold baths, hot saunas, and that's just the tip of the iceberg for people who want to be there and living. So, you know, now we're going to get into the design, and this is again, you know, it's quite a close topic in my mind. Development, doing it down in Plymouth and building from scratch. These are what we call the Thula suites. So again, we're looking, if you think about any market you're walking into, if you are just designing one property strategy, you need to have backup. These are designed again, sort of 35 meters squared. These are designed for usage for digital nomads, which is a predominant thing here, and also people staying on the retreats who are going to come on a weekly and monthly basis. So, you know, this is now we're going to get, and this is where Tim will probably get excited very much so on the numbers and talk about yields. Tim, just give me a ballpark of one of your latest yielding properties, and what is the property and what does it yield and where is it?
So an example would be a small 2-bed flat that I've got up in Glasgow. It's yielding currently about 10% at the moment. I'll be very lucky in terms of being able to increase the rent a little bit. I had a tenancy changeover. But before that, the yield was around about the 9%. So yeah, so at the moment, that's one of my higher yielding properties.
And you know, and that is great. And again, you know, this has got to be relative. It's not like a, you know, which is bigger is better. It's, you know, relative to the UK. That's a fantastic yield now. You know, people are actually, you know, you can, you know, obviously go down the HMO route with multiple occupancy or an Airbnb strategy to force that yield. But again, that comes at cost of hassle, cost of higher maintenance costs, etc. So again, this is just putting it in perspective. This is from 175,000. This is US dollars. I think, Tim, you said that was what, about £130,000, something like that? Was that the
yeah, at the moment, the exchange rate at the moment, that's about £136,000, which is,
there we go.
Yeah, very
so
good.
You know, £136,000, gross yield of, you know, nearly 19%. But again, a key number that everybody talks about, you know, or is yield. Yes, of course, but actually what you want to know is your net ROI. So that's your management costs, utilities, you know, and maintenance on an ongoing basis, which nobody actually really wants to talk about. So you're looking at in between, you know, sort of 9 to 10% payback in about 9 to 10 years of the whole entirety. And this is very crucial. I want to show something here. This is an 80-year lease. That is not common here in Bali. The average is 25 years. And again, this is about the understanding of a market, why it happens. For people in the UK, the mindset is I must be the king of my own castle and I must have the freehold. There is a very different, you can get freehold here, which we've managed to attain. It's becoming harder to get. And thank you to the Indonesian government. About 7 years ago, they changed the rules. So foreign investors can actually own a variation of the freehold. It's not quite the same as being an Indonesian, but it still has the same legitimacy in a company structure and can be 100% foreign owned. And that's something that came in only 7 years ago, just before COVID. So again, being able to secure that and then being able to offer investors in HIVIBE 80 years is actually legitimate. And we're very proud, but most you will see here is 25 years, and yeah, good luck with that. So again, we're looking at it from a foreign investor perspective to be able to provide that, and that you know, the ability to pass that on to other generations, but more importantly, knowing that from our perspective, we're the actual freeholders and we'll be there for forever. So again, looking at your target audience and providing the product that is needed. So again, this is sort of like the smaller, the suites. And again, all of this information, you can go to HIVIBebali.com and download the full brochures, which we were going to go to at the end. But again, you know, different target market. These are called the Alaya. These are designed for actually investors, really, who either want to be there, but more importantly, have 2 levels that allows them to be I'm going to use English terms, 2 suites or flats, which allows maximization of rental income. So again, just to kind of give you an idea of this is coming at a gross yield of 22.5%, completely hassle-free management. But again, what you're looking at here is, you know, really, really solid, easy rental. And again, if we can't rent those out next to a lagoon in the whole of Bali, I don't know what I'm doing here. But from my perspective, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, all of these things have, you know, construction warranties. Again, if you're actually thinking about, you know, being a bit more serious and wanting to actually have a second home, this is now getting into the residency areas, and this is what we now call manor. This is higher energy and power. These are 2-story, got a really complementary design with both Western influence, but also Indonesian architecture. And this is what they're looking like. Own private garden, own private pools. Again, a very simple, great design. You can check more of it out and the actual exact floor plans on the website. But again, we're looking at here of a 20% yield. So what I'm really pointing out with all of these are designed for different demographics within the totality of the market of who comes to Bali. So we're not putting all our eggs in one basket. We're actually, you know, from a risk perspective, this is what I would call good portfolio management in any investor's portfolio, whether it, you know, be in the UK or what, have different types, have buy-to-lets, have HMOs, have, you know, larger units or a block of flats, etc. Because you yourself are therefore applying your products to different segments of the market, which actually makes you more bulletproof. And finally, you know, for the real big hitters out there, these are 3-4 bedroom villas. These are called Solara. These are, you know, really special. Again, very sought after. There are only, I think, 2 have already been sold. There's 2 left. And these have a very high payback, due simply down to the demand from the Australians coming over here with families constantly. And again, you know, 21% gross yield on something that's, you know, over half a million or $590,000 US. Tim, if you want to do the maths, I don't know what that's in the UK. I'm going to go ballpark $500,000. But again, you know, for $500,000 without any lending on acquisition, again, over the next 2 years, this will be built out. And with all of these properties, there is very limited lending as it stands at the moment, but I can very much say, very especially that upon completion, all of these properties will be mortgageable, up to 50% loan to value. So again, when you start running the numbers, this will be very, very special. And so, yeah, when you've got your investor hat on, you know, doing a like-for-like comparison, not only is it a lifestyle, this is how everything, you know, blends together. You've got the amenities. This is a lifestyle. This is about property investing as well. I'm really showing everybody the journey. You know, I started off with a small HMO in Plymouth, and who would have thought, you know, a few years later, or 20 years later, you'd be in a foreign country, you know, making 250% just on your land acquisition. So again, you know, what I would like to say is, you know, with everything, this is all about investors doing their own due diligence, of course, but with anything, it's about, you know, who you're working with, and it's about, you know, as I say, having a bigger picture in mind. Just for everybody, you know, we've got a timeline on everything, and again, details of this. It's not just what I would call a 5-minute approach. We've got the most amazing project management team I've ever seen, and that's including when we used to do 10 to 20 million pound developments in London. I wish I'd found this gentleman a long time ago, with a team of 20, just something special. And again, when you have the right sort of knowledge and put yourself out there, you know, that attracts the right type of people, and we're getting a very special team together. The founders.
Before we go into that, I've got a question just with regards to the project itself. Gary's asked, are the mortgages based in Indonesia when they can be mortgageable?
Yes, they will.
Okay, amazing.
But just want to be very clear, at the moment, they're not attainable. But that's another, what's the word? Project of mine, which will solve it all. And that is very exciting to be in control of that. So that's why I can stand here and say, after completion. So again, the funding will need to be paid for by the investor for sure, but after completion, they will be mortgageable. So again, you know, you've got to be thinking, you know, don't just let that go in one ear and out the other, and hear what you want to hear, any of the investors on here. But yes, so by the time this is ready, that will be mortgageable. Okay,
brilliant. Gary, I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Very quickly, in answer to your question, Chris, about the Solara, it's about £460,000.
Okay, there we go.
5.9.
That's so 4-bedroom house, dream position. That's probably about the same as I don't know, a 700 square foot flat in Greenwich, in London.
Oh gosh. Okay.
This is about investing, right? This is not about anything else. And again, you know, from my perspective, it's you know, a whole principle of sourcing investments is to bring line of sight to opportunities that you can't create yourself. And I think hopefully today this is, you know, something that is massively doing that, and in line with what we do in the UK as well.
But I think what's really important here as well, Chris, is that, you know, this isn't some pie in the sky idea. You have been living in Indonesia for the last several months to see how viable this project is. And you've, through research, through development, through connection, and really developing this visionary idea with your co-founders, it's actually proving to be a very viable project that is coming to fruition. And it's not just something to get into with regards to capital growth. It's actually looking, as you mentioned, you know, you're looking to grow old there. So this is a project that not only is your heart involved in, but the longevity of it is, you know, it is there for multiple years, like for decades to come, because of the lifestyle, because of you, because of what you've come to learn from a holistic point of view. I mean, to me, this makes my heart sing, right? But really, from somebody who's come from that corporate background and then to transition into this is something very much, I would say, maybe a purpose project.
Without a doubt, and you know, I think we were talking earlier as well. You know, it very much feels like, you know, all of the experiences, my experiences, good, bad, ugly, failures, understanding people, you know, and getting hurt along the way. All of that is, you know, when it's good, you learn. When it's not so good, you learn even more. And I think, you know, it very much feels to me as though, you know, this is a, you know, all of my experiences have come together to actually to be able to sort of do this. Yes, as a personal passion project, but more importantly, all of the learnings, all of the trainings that I've done over the years and actually applied it, you know, whether it be in Plymouth or London or you know, Lincolnshire or wherever it's been, Switzerland, that was another one. And, you know, it's stood me in good stead. And this is for anybody, you know, listening here is, you know, very much, you know, information and knowledge is absolutely key. Wherever you are investing, whatever you're doing, if you do that, you are then informed and you can make decisions, you know, with that information and be informed properly. And a lot of people don't. What I've noticed, you know, over the years is most people are, you know, willing to listen to somebody they've only just met in the pub, more likely so than you know, than actually doing the research and detail themselves. And I've seen it here as well. I think I hear about, you know, it's quite interesting hearing sauna conversations between supposed, you know, property investors who are doing it for the first time, and they're suddenly dealing with, you know, £500,000 worth of land and property, and they don't even know what a you know, a purling is on a roof. Like, come on. So yeah, it's quite interesting. So I think, you know, from my perspective, to be able to bring this, you know, to the world, not just to SI, because again, this is the first time we only just launched a website, I think about an hour and 10 minutes ago. So, you know, again, this is first. And anybody watching this, you know, we will have an exclusivity period for anybody, you know, with my connection of sourcing investments, you know, probably until the end of the week, if you're genuinely interested. Just to give you know, a bit of an inkling, there is a possibility if there are of shared ownership, you know, with you and whether it be your best friends or something like that. But again, we're not going to be there getting involved in that. You can buy within a company structure, which makes it very tax efficient, which we've already touched upon. So again, a lot of the mechanisms are very, very similar that I've taken from the UK and best practice, and just really put this together into something that really is special around the lifestyle, about what it is. And yeah, let's throw it out to the world, and I'm sure there'll be a few who'll take up on it.
Amazing.
Very exciting indeed. And you also mentioned about some visa benefits when you buy through a company structure or when you buy something here. Could you explain a little bit about those?
Circumstances, which obviously have to be looked at, but with the purpose of buying property or investments here, you have the potential of getting a 2-year visa, investor visa. But again, it's down to your individual circumstance, which needs to be looked at by a proper immigration lawyer, but which we can facilitate with. But again, gives opportunities, not just, you know, from a good taxation perspective, but also, you know, again, if people are wanting to change their lives and be able to come and go as they please, it's a benefit to it. So again, you know, from my side, you know, Bali is just the first step. It makes sense on a global level, but we're also looking at Portugal and Mexico ourselves. So, you know, HIVIBE's not going anywhere. We really want to bring this to the world, relative to, as I say, being property investors, but simultaneously, you know, wanting to change lives and, you know, really allow residencies, people, and a global community to really, you know, shift and move into what I would call the real way of living. I think we've forgotten that. So now it's about, you know, bringing the old and the new together and turning it into something that everybody can resonate with.
I've just seen a message from Gary to say, please add the Philippines to that list.
Oh, he's trying to push. He's trying to push some sales.
He said he's got some land.
Let's talk, Gary.
Absolutely.
No, I love this. I love this, and especially from a point where I come from a physical background, being in tune, mind, body, and soul being in tune together. Something like this is crucial for today's way of living. I'm super excited. I love the idea of the Alaya, being able to live there. Let's say live on the ground floor, rent out the top floor flat. Yeah, I think that's great. Getting an income as well as the perfect lifestyle. I'm super excited. Super excited.
Oh, thanks, Tim. But again, you know, it's that, you know, for me, it's that blend of why do you do that as a property investor? Do you know what I mean? And being able to apply that to something that you can create. That's not just, you know, something that I've just thought of here. That's some, you know, from experience and understanding, you know, mindset of people and also market demand, right? You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, but you can definitely pick and learn all the stuff over, you know, 20, 25 years of real estate. You know, it gives you a couple of tips here and there. And I think from my side, you know, what I was going to say to everybody is, you know, anybody watching, HIVIBE, HIVIBE, Bali.com. You can go to it. You can see a lot more information, download the brochure, which is substantial, especially for anybody wanting to make decisions. But again, the key thing is, you know, have a look at everything on here, do your own due diligence. And if anybody is interested from changing their life through to wanting to facilitate lives of others and doing investing in a holistic way, then this is something that should be interesting towards you. So yeah, come and take a look, download the brochure, and we will see you in the near future, I hope.
We will see you in Bali. Honestly, Chris, I want to thank you, and you know, to the viewers that are here with us live, and to those that are rewatching on the replay. There is so much juice in this project. You know, Tim's already mentioned, you know, mind, body, soul. You know, from my experience, that's where my background is, and to have this community built around all of the energetics where you've really looked at, it's not just, you know, if it was in the UK or the West, let's just call it, if it was in the West, you know, it would be maybe a project to build a community, but this is really a project to build a community that re-engages us with the, you know, I'm going to go into my spiritual side now, re-engages us with that spiritual side and aspect of ourselves where we're connecting back to ourselves, back to nature, back to source, in effect, and living from a very, I would say, a very holistic 3-in-1 aspect. And you've really thought about, with regards to the sacred geometry, the structure. I know that you laughed when you mentioned the pyramid, but it's so crucial, like the structure of the buildings, even the plants that are going in there, everything. You know, there's I think the Japanese do forest bathing. So really, with regards to the plants, the specific look at what plants you're looking to have in and around the structures themselves, so that everything is in harmony. And that's very, very important for any of our viewers to remember. It's the harmony of the aspect that is being created here. And I really want to congratulate you, because as I mentioned, when you mentioned it to me a year ago, I was excited, but when I've seen it today, I'm really enthused of what you've created, and I really want to acknowledge you for that.
No, I really appreciate it. And to be honest, it just is a little sort of cheeky side note. God, it'd be a lot easier investing in a 2-bedroom flat in Glasgow than it would be doing this project.
I love it. I love it.
I well imagine.
So, okay, gentlemen. So with that, Tim has very kindly dropped the website URL into the chat box. I'm sure that will be available on the YouTube. If you can't find it on our YouTube channel, please feel free to reach out to us at the team at admin@sourcinginvestments.co.uk. We will happily supply you with the URL there to the website, but it is hivibebali.com. Any questions, feel free to reach out to us at the admin team. And with that, I want to thank our CEO, Chris Dowty, our resident investor, Tim Sanders. And for all of you viewers that are here live with us today, thank you again. And to all of those of you that watch on the replay, I wish you all an amazing rest of the month, and I look forward to our next show. Bye for now.